Awesome. Well, we are going to, get started here, and we'll start off slow so as people start joining us, they don't miss too much here. But my name is Kate, and we are here at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, and I have Maggie and Aaron here with us today. They are our retail account managers in our food resourcing department. So essentially, the folks who help us work with all sorts of local and national partners to get the donated food product that we then get out to our partners and our clients. So an extremely important role that we wouldn't be able to do our jobs without them. So, we're just going to do some quick little introductions here and then we'll get started. Let's see, Maggie, I've got you on my screen first. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, share a little bit about how you got to the food bank, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting us to do this. I'm Maggie. On my emails, you'll see Margalit, which is my full name, that I don't use very often. But I've been with the food bank for about 5.5 years. I started in outreach, working directly in the community, helping people with their SNAP benefits and other public benefits. And then I've been in this position in the food resources department for about 3 years now, I believe.
Okay. I'm Erin, and I've also been in the food resources department for about 3 years. I have a background in industrial hardware supply sales, so it was quite a mix-up when I came to work at the food bank, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I love hearing everybody's stories of how they got here because, just as a plug for how, we like to work with people, you can come from all different backgrounds and we will find a place for you, whether it's working here, volunteering here, we will find you and we will get you in the right spot. Awesome. Well, just so everyone knows, we do have the chat disabled today, and we are not having our attendees speak during this, so we can just keep the focus on Maggie and Aaron here, but the Q&A is open, so please use that to ask any questions that you have. I'll remind people during this, we'll make sure that we leave time for questions. But let's get started. I think we're going to start, Aaron, with an overview of what you all do, and then we'll get into all of the details, the innovation that you're doing, and how you really make this happen.
Absolutely. We have just a couple quick slides to show the overview of the food sourcing process at the food bank. So there's 4 main buckets of how we get food at the food bank. The first is going to be your USDA, and that's about 30% of the food bank product comes from that. And items received through that are typically shelf-stable items and the CFAP boxes. The second way is purchased food, and that's about 22% of food bank product. And that is items that we purchase to fill the gaps of what we need. So for example, that tends to be produce, meat, and staples. The third one is donations, which we will go into much more detail about today. And that's about 32% of the food bank product. And it's a huge variety of items. And it's typically item retailers and manufacturers cannot sell, but is still edible. And the fourth one is the state of Ohio, and that's about 16% of food bank products. And so to break it down even more, there's 4 buckets of donated food. It's food drives and individuals, manufacturers, distributors, and retail food, which is what Maggie and I specialize in. So I will stop sharing this. So
yeah, so it's a big program, and I do see that we do have a quick question here about CFAP, and that is one of the federal programs. Do you want to say that? I always get the acronym wrong.
That is not something that Maggie and I specialize in.
Yeah, it's a senior box program. And I always get the name of it wrong, but that's a special program that is for low-income seniors. They can sign up for a monthly box of shelf-stable product, and some cheese and sometimes some other product if we have that available. So it is a special program that the federal government runs, in addition to kind of the regular donated product from the federal government. And we are always obviously super grateful for all of our partners who help us get food to people. But kind of some of the unsung heroes are all the companies and our local retailers who are doing things right now like Harvest for Hunger and Checkout for Hunger. If you shop at your local stores like Dave's, Lucky's, Heinen's, and Giant Eagle. But every day and every week they're helping us get our the food that we need to distribute. So just kind of stepping back a little bit, what who are really the people who we work with? I know it's much more than just those kind of the three big names there. I just want to give us an overview of who are our partners in this really important work.
So I'll just say, so going from what Erin was showing and explaining, so Erin and I handle solely just the retail donors. So those are basically any grocery store you could think of or that you've been to is a food donor of ours, which we're really lucky that people want to participate in our programs because there's benefits for us, obviously, and there's benefits for them as well. So we work with all Heinen stores, Giant Eagle stores, Mark's, Aldi, Dave's, Walmart, Target. So there are some that fall into bucket of like national level donors. Those come to us through Feeding America's partnership with retailers on a national level. So they sort of oversee that relationship, but we kind of see it through and manage it on a local level. And then we also work with regional or local donors such as Dave's, Heinen's, Giant Eagle. And there's benefits working with both. And then there's also some just like local donors that reach out to us individually and just want to, donate small amounts of food, which we still are very appreciative of. So there's a large spectrum of retail food donors that we work with.
Yeah, and I would imagine that all of them have different capacities for how, you can work with them also. I know that you always say, it's lots of phone calls. Great. So, with so many different, types of retailers going from some of the largest companies in the country down to, really like, convenience store, local, even health food store. How do we, get that food, from all these really, it's a really diverse group of people. How do we get that food and so that we can then get it out to people?
So when back in the day, I believe what first started was the retail donation program, which was just the food bank's fleet trucks was picking up directly at retailers and bringing it back to the food bank. And we quickly realized that that was not the most efficient way of getting that food back out to our agency partners. So from that began the agency enabled program, where agencies are given the training and the tools and the equipment needed to pick up directly at the retailers and then take that food back to their own agencies where they weigh, separate, and log the donations so that we can provide the retailers with the receipts. And then they distribute it directly from their agencies. And that we saw a much quicker turnaround on the food that was going out. So that has been the first step that we took to ensuring that our agency partners were getting that food quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, because, as we started this conversation, the food that, we typically get, it's still food that is, perfectly good, but especially things like produce or meat and dairy, things like that is, as things are getting, close to, when they might expire. So we need to get them out to our clients as quickly as possible. So there's capacity constraints with, just the time of getting things, to the food bank and then out back again versus like that direct agency enablement program that you're talking about. And then, also on the capacity side, this is just, what our warehouse and our staff can also do. So it's I think a really great piece that I think, Feeding America also helped us, build that out back when we started that enablement program with that capacity building. Because obviously some agencies, probably wouldn't have the experience to do that. So I imagine you have to work with them to ensure that they know how to work with those as opposed to like our drivers who are professionals and do that all the time. All right. And so, I know that we've also experimented, between our old building not having capacity. We also have, our drivers and our trucks in the capacity that they have. That's created also some opportunities for some new innovations also. And during the pandemic, we also had a direct drop program, and we're also starting a new program. Maybe if you want to talk about direct drop first. So we've got kind of the old classic model of the food bank, us picking everything up. We've got the agencies being able to go directly to the retailers and pick things up ourselves. And we've got option 3, direct drop.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were facing a lot of partners, unfortunately, during the pandemic, were losing their volunteers. They were losing the capability to go pick up directly at the stores. And obviously we were trying to minimize contact during that time. So from this, we started the direct drop program, where our fleet trucks were still the ones that were going to the retailers and they were picking up the donations. However, instead of bringing it back to our facility, they were taking it directly to agencies and dropping it off, typically alongside the agency order. So we were reducing the amount of retail food coming back to the food bank still, but we weren't enforcing having agencies pick up. And that direct drop program probably has about 10 to 15 agencies now receiving food through that. And it's had a really great response.
Yeah, because a lot of people, we do have larger agencies, because to pick anything up, you have to have a vehicle, you have to have, either volunteers or staff who are able to do that. And a lot of our partners, they are, very small. They're run by volunteers. A lot of folks who might be a little older, and who maybe can't necessarily handle that level, or they don't have a truck, they have a small car. So it's great that we have all these different options. And that brings us to our 4th brand new program that we are just kicking off this year, which I'm very excited for y'all to share about, our new volunteer-based model for using, for helping get our retail donations in.
Yes, we are excited about it too. Yeah, so a lot of these changes and new programs have been things that we've had to be creative about just because capacity has changed within the food bank and amongst our agencies. And there's been a lot of changes amid the pandemic, after the pandemic, all that. So direct drop program sort of came out of pandemic needs. And then this new volunteer program that we're, I guess, sort of piloting or post-pilot phase came out of our agencies really now having the capacity to accept and distribute retail product, but not having the ability to pick it up themselves, just because it really is a time commitment for a lot of agencies. And luckily, a lot of them really are accustomed to it and enjoy it. It's part of their routine, picking up retail donations regularly. They have relationships with someone at the retailer and all that. But for a lot of agencies, they don't have that ability. So we have started a program where volunteers who are, for the most part, volunteers of the food bank already, have taken on this additional volunteer opportunity to pick up retail donations at our existing retail donors, and dropping those donations off at agencies who can accept them, and who are really serving a lot of clients in areas of need, and just don't have the volunteer base or the ability to pick up donations themselves. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone, for us, for the donor to get the amount of donations picked up that they need, for the volunteer to do something different and really gratifying, and for the agency to get, a variety of product they wouldn't get from ordering from us. And then there's a relationship that can be formed too amongst the volunteer and the donor and the agency. So far so good. And we are doing that, I'll mention, through the Cargill grant, which came through Feeding America. And that grant was really gave us an opportunity to be creative and expand agency enablement and expand the retail donation program. So we're trying something new, and hopefully we can continue working on that for a while.
Yeah, and I love that, we are looking for ways to, to innovate and to solve different problems, because each of these new ways of doing things has been responding to a specific issue that we're seeing, that we're not just kind of, this is how we do things and our partners better kind of get along with it. We really are trying to find specific solutions to specific problems, but also doing it in a way, we're talking about that, there are, pilots that we also have done that we're also, when we do change things, is we also study that, we work with people, we get their feedback, we adjust it. So we're also not just kind of, letting our partners, kind of do things without that support, and making sure that nothing breaks down when we're trying these new models, which I think is, really important from, just, ensuring that, our clients ultimately there aren't any gaps in what they need. So I love that we are balancing that care, along with, exploring new, more efficient ways to do this, excuse me. And just talking about the relationship with the donors and the volunteers and all that, if you could just talk about, how, we're relationship managers for those retail donations, and maybe just talk a little bit about what it's like working with our retail partners, and just like kind of how you interact with them. I'm sure there's a lot of different types of relationships that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. A large part of our job is just the logistics of organizing these pickups, ensuring that our fleet trucks are coming at the right time for the donors, and it's working out with the agencies. The agencies are going at the right time for the donors, and just overseeing the entire process. So we do a lot of store visits in person, a lot of check-ins with the agencies, and it's just purely managing logistically that everything is smooth and happening as it should be. A lot of donors are picked up on schedules, so they can learn to expect us on the right days and have the product ready to go, which just helps alleviate any crunch times for drivers who are trying to finish their routes. So just ensuring that we have open communication across the board is a large part of what we do.
Yeah, because you're talking about crunches on kind of three ends. And you've got, our trucks that do pickups and do deliveries, and then you've got, our retail donors, and then you've got when our agencies actually, have the capacity to receive the donations as well. If we're doing like, the direct drop, or if the agency is picking it up themselves, I'm sure there can be some mismatches of when stores are open and when, an agency is available to do something, or when our drivers are able to do so. I'm sure there's a lot of back and forth sometimes that can happen.
There is. And on top of that, if you're familiar with retail, which most of us are, there's so much turnover, especially throughout the pandemic and post-pandemic, if we could say that's where we are. There's so much turnover. So even if you set something up, you set up a retailer with a donor or with an agency or a volunteer and everything's perfect. Next thing you know, that person has left the store and there's a new contact person who you have to hunt down. So it's constantly navigating all of those relationships and making sure there's a point of contact everywhere. So that's always interesting.
And that also results in a lot of re-education at the store level, because every time there's turnover, we have to go back in and ensure that the new employees know what is available to donate, what's not available to donate, and just ensuring that they are saving all the food that they can save.
Yeah, because I mean, it's one thing to be like, oh, we go to the same store every time, but we don't realize, but there's, staffing and all that is going to continue to change. So, it makes sense. And it's just kind of another layer to how we have to manage those relationships. So how many retail donors do we work with? I know there's brands and individual locations. I know it's a lot.
So we have 232 pickup locations, and some of those will get once a week pickup. Some of those have 3 times a week pickups, and like the most I think we offer is 6 days a week pickup. And those will be at larger retailers. So there's 232 locations total, but that can range in the number of pickups at each location. And I think we work with around 12 to 15 of the large store banners. So those would be like the ones we're all familiar with, like the Targets, the Aldis, the Walmarts, the Heinens, the Giant Eagles. A lot of.
I mean,
I want to mention too, just to shout out our agencies, because they are so committed to doing food rescue, and we just like really enjoy working with them. We have, like Erin said, about 230 pickup locations or food donors, and our fleet, we appreciate them as well, but they only pick up from, I'd say, maybe 50 or 60 of them. our agencies are picking up from the majority of our retail donors on a weekly basis. So we really, none of the food rescue would be possible without them. They really carry the weight of the whole program.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I don't think we can ever, say enough about, our volunteers, our partners, and our partner volunteers, because, that really is where the rubber meets the road. And I mean, we wouldn't be able to do, 99%, what we do. Don't quote me on that statistic, but we wouldn't be able to do anything without the truly remarkable dedication of all of these other, people who are part of this. We are, large enough to be able to logistically manage this on behalf of our partners, but they're really doing literally the heavy lifting of this. And what you also just said about, talk about food rescue, because obviously, we have our, our clients' needs and we need to, get food to them, and that can be, donated by the government, the state, purchase. But one thing that is really beautiful about the retail donation program is it is, rescuing food. It's reducing waste. There's an element of, sustainability that I think is really important to talk about. And I know, Erin, I know sustainability is really important to you. So if you want to just chat a little bit about how you feel about, how this program connects with the global issue of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. So they estimate that 40% of food in America is actually going to waste. And so a program like ours, like the retail donation program, it really helps to alleviate some of that. So we offer an alternative to throwing it out. And we become a business solution for a lot of our retailers because we cut down on costs of them having to discard that food because they pay for their dumpster to be hauled. So not only are we offering the reduced costs, they get a tax write-off, we also are offering a sustainable alternative that is great for the community. And it means that that food that is still edible is really being given to the people that can use it and eat it still. Because the food that comes from the retailers, it's typically towards the end of its shelf life, but it's not garbage worthy. It is edible. And that's something that we try to really reiterate across all of our retail donors. Like, we appreciate all the work they're doing and everything that they've done, but we always want everybody to look at the food that they are putting in the trash and think, can somebody eat this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. I mean, the 40% of food waste is, is a really shocking number. And I know, it's bad in the United States, but it is a global problem of mismatching resources. And we're doing, our part. But I love that we're continuing to educate our retail partners so that they know the breadth of food that we can take. I know, we have our own Euclid food pantry where we, serve our community directly. And, one thing that's also really great about the retail donation program is because it's, a mix of product is, our clients are able to choose more different types of items, with things that, we purchase in bulk. A lot of the, federal and state programs, they're kind of large staple items. And from our retail donors, there can be all sorts of amazing products, really healthy meats and sometimes fish and things that, they aren't able to sell, but, our clients are able to choose things that are appropriate for their diet or just something different. And it makes their experience, I think, a lot more positive because they can get different things. And it's not just, a can of beans. It can be really, produce that fits into their lifestyle and different things. And I think that variety is great nutritionally. It's great just in terms of having a more balanced diet and just people are able to choose things that work for them, just like folks who can regularly go to the grocery store. So I love that we can bring in is not just food waste, not just good for their business side, but also a much better alternative for our clients than kind of the staples that we talk about. Sorry. So I would like to maybe, hear just a little bit about kind of like the nitty gritty of how we kind of can get all of these logistical pieces to work. 'Cause I know we talked about kind of this relationship building and educating people, but I know that with all 4 different programs, there is a lot of pieces to manage, and just, maybe what, your day in, day out, your kind of weekly thing of how you actually manage all 4 of these different programs, using so many different departments here at the food bank, and also with our partners and our donors. What does that really look like, if I were stepping into your roles, which I wouldn't recommend you letting me do?
I guess I can try to explain. So the fun part about our jobs is that every day is very different. We're meeting with donors, we're meeting with agencies. We're in all different, we're served obviously all the counties, so we're in different areas. We're in the office, we're at home, so that can be interesting. But a big part of managing these programs is using technology and software so that we can track everything that's coming in through our retail donors. So we use a system called Meal Connect. That's a system through Feeding America, where agencies, we actually equip all of our agencies with a scale. And Julia, I know you had asked about what vehicles volunteers were using. So our agencies and volunteers use their own vehicles. They're provided with thermal blankets if needed, depending on the time of their transportation to their next location. We provide them with scales, so they're responsible for weighing the donations, since we are responsible for reporting all of that information to Feeding America. So we're spending a lot of time tracking what's coming in on the system Meal Connect, and then that information is all transported to Ceres at some point, which is in our internal system. So that's sort of the core of everything that happens, is tracking what's coming in through those systems. Did that explain that, Erin?
Yeah, I would just add that we do meet annually with all of the agencies in our program, just to reiterate all of the guidelines, any updates to the program, and make sure that everybody is on the same page. But in addition to that annual meeting, we are in constant contact with them all.
Yeah, and I know, things like, different programs and tracking things, it can get a bad rap, but that's also how we know what demand is. And it's how we can, make sure that things are being used, appropriately. It's how we can measure ways that we're improving, things that are working and not working. So I know it's like, paperwork or, digital work, but all of those programs really serve a purpose. And it allows us to to see problems, see what's working, see what's not working. And also to make sure that we are using all the resources that folks are so generous with appropriately. That our retail donations are getting to the right places, and that's getting to the clients, and that everyone is agreeing by the kind of the same standards of how we work with things. So it's not as exciting, but it's really, really important. And I actually was volunteering at one of our partners when a direct drop actually came in. And it was right when I started working. So there, we're weighing things and all that. And I was like, why are we weighing things? And they're like, oh no, like, the food bank has us do this so that we can, make sure that, everything is coming to the right place at the right time and all that. And then, sorting there, checking all the dates, and our partners, they're, so thoughtful about going through, and even, with those donations, making sure that everything was safe and good, that the produce was, perfectly, edible and something they would give to their own families. So there really is a lot of care with, following the rules and also doing it with the right spirit, of, making sure that our clients are getting the, really good, really healthy, really tasty food. So we've got, Meal Connect series, and, talk about the new volunteer program. I know you said that it was a grant from Cargill through Feeding America. with volunteers. There's a question about the volunteer truck. Maybe if we can just go into, just a little bit more detail about how that works, since it is new and it's a little different that we're figuring out. If you could just walk us through that a little bit more.
Sure. So far we have a small pool of our small base, I should say, of volunteers that are doing this program. They've committed to either once a week, or the most someone is doing is about 3 times a week. They're picking up from a retail donor of ours using their personal vehicle and dropping those donations off at a partner agency. And we're really just making sure. So these are, like I said, volunteers who have spent time with us at the food bank before. And we've met with them in person. We've gone through some food safety things and some general training. So we can ensure that our people are participating who we can trust to interact with our retail donors and interact with our agencies, because we want people to be respectful across the board, especially when we're having volunteers drop donations off at partner agencies. We want that to be a really respectful and sort of professional process. So yeah, that's the system. They are, if needed, provided with thermal blankets so that they can transport the food safely to the agency. And then agencies are still required to weigh the donated product so that we can see those pounds in Meal Connect.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, it sounds simple, but I'm sure it's not quite as simple as it sounds. But I know it's like the volunteers are picking things up and dropping things off. That we are looking at locations also, so that they're not going. We have a 6-county area. They're not picking something up in Lake County and dropping it off in Richland County. It's all keeping local for that food safety.
Right. There's definitely some logistics in terms of figuring out what a volunteer schedule is, what a retail donor's availability is, how much product they usually have for donation, what can fit in a volunteer's vehicle, how much product an agency can accept, and on what timeline. So there's definitely some logistics around that. I was going to mention something else and I don't remember. Oh yeah, and we also do want to make sure we're being somewhat equitable with all of these programs, but especially with the volunteer delivery. So I'm really not setting up a volunteer who lives in a suburban area to drop off donations to an agency that's kind of getting the product they need already, and also in a suburban area. We're sort of trying to set things up so that agencies who could really use the product based on the clients they're serving in the area they're in, we're kind of making sure that the retail donations are going to those specific areas. So there is sort of some of that work behind the scenes as well, if that makes sense.
We didn't talk about this, kind of we were, prepping for this, but, I love that you just kind of mentioned kind of that equity piece. And so, I know we didn't talk about this directly, but, with so many of our clients live in food deserts, and that can be urban or rural food deserts. Do you do any work trying to make sure that, that things aren't just staying in the community? How do those conversations happen? Or, logistically, how do we try and work around that again? Because some of the donated product from our retailers is really great product, to make sure that it's, in areas where they don't have as many grocery stores, that they can still access some of those retail donations. Anything that we're doing to try and work on those sorts of issues?
Definitely, yeah. And that's something that we've been lucky that we've had the ability to be sort of creative and come up with new solutions so we can make sure we're not solving those issues, but, doing our part. So the volunteer program, that's something that we definitely look at. So I do have volunteers who live in more suburban areas with higher end grocery stores, that people who are living in neighborhoods that are considered food deserts might not have the income to drive out to those grocery stores and let alone shop there. So it's nice to know that retail donations from higher end grocery stores are going to pantries that are in food deserts. And like you'd mentioned, there's more of a variety that's then available at that food pantry, most of it being nutritious and some not, and that's okay. We still want kids that are shopping at the pantry with their parent to be able to pick out some candy or even flowers. Trader Joe's donates flowers a lot of time, and people love getting free flowers. That's something that isn't always in everyone's budget to just buy themselves flowers. So we love that. And another example is, so we had an agency in the central neighborhood, which is a food desert in Cleveland, who they really wanted to get a more of a variety of fresh product to their clients. So the woman who runs that pantry was driving out to the suburbs multiple times a week to pick up fresh product before she started her workday, bring it back to the pantry so that they had, you know, a variety of fresh product to distribute at their distribution that day. And eventually she said, you know, I really appreciate that I can do this, but financially with, you know, gas prices rising and all that, it's just not doable anymore. So we requested some funds in our budget going into this fiscal year to reimburse agencies for their mileage. And that was approved. So we now reimburse her and everyone else who participates in the program for their donation pickups, just so that we can kind of reduce that one barrier for them a bit.
I love that we're doing that. That's, you know, it's, I mean, I think it's just, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, again, just going back to our partners who, you know, again, they, I mean, that dedication is amazing, but also then again, like the fact that, you know, you heard her story, saw, you know, a problem, and, you know, that presented it to the food bank, and we're trying to create that solution for reimbursement. I mean, I hadn't heard that before, about I know we had the volunteer reimbursement program, but, you know, it's so great that we're also enabling our partners to do that, because it's hard out there for pretty much everybody with gas and food and rent and healthcare and all that. So that's really amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to bring that to the food bank, and the food bank responded. You know, yeah, I'm sure it's your roles are kind of, you're in the middle of so many different people and companies and organizations. I'm really glad, you know, just that you were able to use your knowledge to bring that to the kind of decision makers, and that they really listened to you. And I'm sure that felt great to be able to share that with our partners. So that's, yeah, I love that. And I also love what you said about, you know, the flowers and kids being able to pick out treats. You know, we are, you know, so cognizant of nutrition and how important that is. But you know, food means a lot more than just you know, your, you know, veggies and whole grains. It's also about care and, you know, coming together. And you know, I do appreciate that we, you know, we also want to make sure that, you know, people are getting some happiness and some joy in their lives too. So I love that. Gosh, sorry, I was just looking at my notes here. So, you know, I think that, you know, something that, you know, I really wanted to bring with you know, your team here is I do feel like our retail donation program, you know, does tend to get overlooked a lot. And I know it's hard to be like, you know, why do you feel like your you know, department does get overlooked, but it does, you know, because of, you know, our advocacy efforts. We are very you know, focused on you know, the Farm Bill and what, you know, the state is doing, and then obviously, you know, with inflation, we have to talk, unfortunately, about our own costs for purchasing food. So, you know, I think kind of our retail partners do get a little bit lost in the shuffle with that. And so, you know, I would just love to, you know, hear about, you know, what this program, you know, means to you, how it fits in, you know, with those buckets of where our food comes in, because it really is, you know, an important but overlooked piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. The retail donation program in particular is often just lumped in with the donated food, and we do get donated food from a lot of great partners, and the retail is just a portion of that. So it is often just easy to put it alongside all the rest of the donations. But our retail donation program is crucial to helping combat like inflation, and everything that we receive from our retail partners does go out to our agencies at no cost to the agency at all. So that is definitely something that Maggie and I strive to ensure that the retail donations are being given equitably to all the agencies that participate. And it really is a crucial program to help meet the gap between what the food bank has to offer. And as you've mentioned, offering a wider variety of products and giving the people the shopping experience of being able to have name brand products that we at the food bank might not have access to, and being able to give them such a variety of fresh food, meat, seafood, shelf-stable goods, and even like over-the-counter medicines, personal care products, stuff like that. And as the cost of living keeps increasing and inflation rises, we do see, unfortunately, a lot more people needing to access these items.
Yeah, I mean, that's also something that I'm glad you mentioned with the personal care items and other things. I definitely use, you can't use, SNAP benefits for those types of items. You can't use, WIC for anything like that. So kind of, the two primary ways of, helping low-income families access food. So, and that's also something we can't buy things like that, but we tend to buy, things that be like, paper towel or things that are more directly connected to food items. So that's another, piece that I love that we're able to do. I know I've seen at our own Euclid pantry, even like toothpaste and things like that people can pick up. So yeah, I mean, I think that's great to keep in mind also that that's another role that our retail donors can bring that would be much harder for us to do without there. We've got a really lovely question. We're going to move away a little bit from kind of the needs and the difficulties. We've got a really lovely question here about the flowers. Loving to hear about the flowers. And this is a kind of a general question, but Maggie and Erin, are there other ways that you think that we could bring some joy to people in these circumstances, in addition to meeting their food needs? Maggie, especially with your experience in outreach, I don't know if you have some ideas, whether it's something our partners could do, volunteers could do. I know it's a little bit of a different question, but I would love any thoughts that you have. It was a really beautiful question.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I don't know if I'm the right person to answer it, but I guess my personal response would be, I mean, like we were saying with reimbursing the agencies and doing some other things along those lines, what Erin and I try to do just to make life easier for our volunteers and our agencies is just to listen to their needs. There's so much conversation and feedback that comes in on a daily basis, so many conversations we have, but really listening to what people are needing, and really listening to their feedback, I think is, even if we can't have a solution, just being a team here that's receiving feedback and attempting to provide solutions, I think people appreciate that. And then just making it clear to our retail donors that they can donate an assortment of items, not just food items, because people who shop at our pantries really will appreciate a lot of other items as well. A lot of the smaller local stores that we work with have donated, different health food items, like Erin said, personal care items. And those are things that people, like you said, wouldn't often take the time to purchase for themselves. So those items, we always encourage people to donate.
Yeah, I love that. Anything, Erin, and you don't have to add anything if nothing comes to mind, but.
No, that what Maggie said is great. In terms of bringing joy directly to our clients, one pantry I did visit around the Thanksgiving period, they were writing these very sweet little notes to their clients, just wishing them to have a great holiday. And I think just little things like that we can all do in our daily lives, like random acts of kindness that can help just spread joy to our clients, to our fellow colleagues, just anything like that to make the world a little happier.
Yeah. I almost wish we could. We're not going to end right there, but it would be a great note to end on. Those are definitely lessons I think would probably bring joy in anyone's circumstances. Listening, a little extra kindness, and kind of thinking outside the box are I think what you kind of suggested, and would really apply to anyone in any situation. And I'll be thinking about that, hopefully not just today, but definitely keep that in mind. Okay, yeah, and this is, I think, related. I think you really hit on this kind of, follow-up question. Are there any other areas that our partners have, asked that they can help with? So, the reimbursement, program for those miles, obviously, problem. Have they asked for other types of help that we might be able to assist with? Or, other kinds of things that our partners have suggested, that, or maybe some kind of things that are on the table that we hear, since you are hearing from everybody who we work with, basically.
Absolutely. And we have a great agency services team here. And over the past couple of years, we have offered a lot of capacity building grants. And I know a lot of our agencies utilize those to purchase more freezers and fridges, to update their equipment, to ensure that the food they are receiving is stored correctly and safely. So those typically tend to be a lot of what agencies need, is equipment, in addition to extra volunteers.
Yeah, and outside of that, I guess the programs that we've started have sort of been in response to agency needs. So the Direct Track program was in response to agencies saying, with this pandemic, we just do not have the ability to pick up donations anymore. Same with the volunteer program and the reimbursement. So our job is to source food from retail donors and manage those relationships, but it's also to really listen to agencies and make sure that we're getting retail products to communities that need it, so we can try to reduce whatever barriers they might have.
Yeah, going back again to that listening, asking questions and listening to folks when they respond. So this is a specific question. When we were talking before this, you were talking about bringing on new relationships, because obviously we've got some kind of our large companies, other folks that we've been working with for years. I know that we're also trying to bring on new people, either sharing what we're doing, or other folks who are coming to us. Maybe you could walk through a little bit about how we work with new companies, new partners who are interested in donating, what that looks like. I know specifically we're talking about one of the convenience stores. Just walk us through a little bit again, shifting back to the donors themselves, what that onboarding and process is like.
Sure. Yeah. So for the majority of our donors do come from a national level. So through Feeding America, like your Aldi's, and which Aldi is expanding very rapidly. So we've had a lot of new Aldi stores pop up, especially in Lake County. So a lot of our stores do come to us through Feeding America. And then that just entails stopping in, meeting with the manager. Oftentimes, retail managers bop around, so you're usually working with a manager who's just coming from a different store within that banner, so that makes things a little bit easier for us. But we're just setting up a donation pickup schedule that works for them, going through some food safety things in their donation program, meeting some staff. But it's a relatively hands-off experience. And then on a local level, we're sort of always looking out for grocery stores or markets or convenience stores who might have some food, even if it's a small amount, that they're throwing out, that an agency might be interested in picking up. And the convenience store actually that I just most recently started working with, they reached out to one of our agencies who participates in our program to say, we've been throwing out food, can we please donate it to you, which is awesome. But so then the agency reaches out to me and says, hey, this is the situation. Can you go in and kind of discuss the food safety and suss it out for us before we say yes? So that's where I come in and I can say, okay, here's the situation, we're all good. And now they're picking up donations from them. So we just sort of kind of step in and manage the relationship, and then hopefully step back and let it all play out.
Yeah, and I love that. We all like to have that, friend or family member or something who can come in and kind of check things out. So I think we've all been in that situation, that agency, oh, can you check this out for me before I jump in? But with the convenience stores, what kind of things, would that convenience store even donate? I know it's not, as much as I would like to just have things like Hostess cupcakes, it's not that kind of product necessarily.
There might be a Hostess cupcake here and there. I don't think we could turn that down. But yeah, I mean, just any old convenience store, a lot of times they wouldn't be a good candidate to donate. But stores that have, you know, a cooler and freezer section, and they have some milk that's getting thrown out because people aren't, you know, coming in regularly to purchase it. Some dry goods, canned goods that are maybe have a tiny dent or a little rip on the label, but are still perfectly fine to eat. There are items like that that we can accept. Obviously, we do not accept alcohol or tobacco products or anything like that. So we do have to really make that clear to those sorts of donors, because that's a big no-no. But there is food that goes to waste even on a small store like that. So there are some items to be picked up. Bread as well.
I think that's a key takeaway, is that like no donation is too small. That we deal with a lot of the large retailers, but there are also stores like this convenience store where there is food that we can rescue.
And that's true. I mean, 40% of, food going to waste, it's, it's not just, mega stores. It adds up percent by percent. And I'm sure it's probably, it's another relationship to manage, just more logistics. But, because of, the work that you're able to do, we can, pick up those smaller amounts and make it done and do it in a way that is, efficient and effective. But yeah, I mean, that will go out, to our agency and get to our clients. We're getting close to the end of the hour here. So just, reminder to anyone who is on, please feel free to, use the Q&A for any more questions that you have. And also, everyone has my contact information. If you have a question, after you're done, after you've thought about things, please reach out to me, and I can get you an answer, get you in touch with Meg or Erin if it's something, specific about, what they're doing. So, don't worry about that. But, something that I kind of like to always, end with here is just, to reflect on either, an experience that you've had, with a donor, with a partner, even you can just directly at the food bank or a volunteer, that has really kind of, made a difference to you, really, kind of is when you think about coming into work every day is, something that you can, hold on to, that has, is making your work and your experience here, really important. Just, what something that just sticks out in your mind.
Definitely. For me, it's really just being able to make an impact in our agency's lives. I had a situation where an agency called me and they had a distribution the next day and they had no meat to give out. And I was able to help them organize a one-off pickup at one of our retailers to help fill their freezers for that distribution. And just knowing that the impact that our programs have on our agencies and their clients, it really helps me come to work every day and just makes it good.
Yeah, I'll say on that note, and there are a lot of examples, but something that happens relatively regularly is Erin or I will get a call from usually a Walmart or a Target or a Costco saying, hey, we have a bunch of Christmas trees left over, or a bunch of pumpkins, or a pallet of notebooks, or some backpacks, or some bikes, or a lawnmower, like things that really would just be thrown in a dumpster, which is so tragic. And yes, it's not food, but these are still items that clients or partners would really appreciate and might not be able to purchase. And then we can sort of do the fun job of making some calls and seeing who wants to pick those items up and give them to their clients. So that's always something that's sort of enjoyable and rewarding.
No, that's incredible. I know sometimes in our own, we've got an area where if agencies are picking up their food orders directly at the food bank, we have a little marketplace, folks can shop in, that, will have all sorts of, regular food, but then, kind of fun seasonal items sometimes. I know I've even seen like Halloween costumes for kids down there. So that is fun. I'm trying to imagine throwing away bicycles, but, I guess there are rules about things, but I love that, we have, the flexibility again, of, you said, of listening and of just, thinking ultimately about what our clients need. and not being, not being really narrow and being restrictive, but making it work, finding solutions, and really looking for all those hidden gems and those little, moments of joy that we can hopefully bring to all of the families who use our services. Well, thank you, both so much for joining us today. I always learn, so much when we, prepare for these, and then we get on and I learn even more from people like as we talk. So I just really appreciate your time. I just want to see something come back. Okay. And yeah, so sorry, I got distracted by a little ping on my computer. But thank you so much for coming. Learned even more from you today than what I had than what we had been planned for. So I really appreciate that. And for everyone who's joined us today, thank you so much for taking the time to hear about our retail donation team. It takes a village of all these different people coming together, and I'm really grateful to be able to share that with you. We're going to be taking a pause on the Food for Thought for a little bit here, but we've got amazing volunteer opportunities. We'd love to see you. Our partners would love to see you if you'd like to volunteer out in the community. And then also, it's Harvest for Hunger season, and we've got a market coming up, a market at the food bank on April 30th. Tickets are available for that, and you can come see us at our brand new warehouse here on Coit Road. We would love to see you for that. And like I said, if you have any other questions or would like to reach out about anything, please contact me. We would love to see you. And thank you again for your passion and your commitment to ending hunger here in our community. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, Aaron. And I hope that everyone just has a wonderful day and listen and find that joy, and maybe share a little bit with some other folks too.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Kate.